And today we are going to start inverse functions. So we're going to start off taking some notes, and then you have a practice assignment and you have homework. The practice assignment is going to be listed as a practice quiz. Your homework is going to be work that you do out on a sheet of paper and then submit through Canvas. Okay. I will be uploading you guys' grades today or tomorrow into Power School Learning. They're in Canvas, just not in Power School Learning. So you guys will be able to see everything then. So you guys need to make sure that you're getting the stuff done. All right. So I am going to go ahead and start with our inverse notes. I have a printout and I put the printout on Canvas. So you should be able to access it if you have a printer and write it down on this. But if you don't have a printer, that's also totally fine. You can handwrite these notes. There's nothing special about this piece of paper. Okay. Let me check my messages real quick. Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and start. So we're starting inverse functions today, and we're asking the question, what are inverse functions? Okay, so an inverse function okay, we're defining it right here, is a function that undoes the original function. Okay, so it does the opposite of what the original function did. So if I drew out a function map, like we talked about at the beginning, we have x's and we have y's. Maybe I have the numbers 1, 2, and 3, and then 4, 5, and 6. Maybe 1 maps to 5, 2 maps to 4, and 3 maps to 6. So the arrows are pointing to the right, okay? So our function f moves from left to right. It takes those x's and outputs those y's. But our inverse function, which we notate as f to the -1 power, is going to go the opposite direction. So it's going to switch all these arrows so that they're starting on the y's and ending up on the x's. Okay? And we call this f inverse. Okay, so I don't want to hear you guys saying f -1 or f to the -1 power. When you see that, you should say f inverse. Move this ladybug out of the way. Oh. And the f of x's have points. So 1 went to 5. So 1, 5 is a point. 2 went to 4. And 3 went to 6. And the inverses should do the opposite. So they take 5 to 1, 4 to 2, and 6 to 3. Okay?
I have a question.
Yeah, what's your question?
So when we're doing it like this, do we always write it twice?
What do you mean? Like these two things?
Yes.
You will likely not be asked to do that. We're about to go through how they ask you the questions in a minute. This is just explaining, like, my f function went one way and my f inverse function went the opposite way. And it's kind of showing it in two different ways using the arrows and then the points also.
Okay.
Good question. What other questions do you guys have about this definition? Okay, so that is kind of like the basic mechanics of what an inverse function is doing. Now we're going to actually talk about how to take a given function. So maybe we're given the function f of x equals 3x plus 6. So we're taking that given function. We're going to talk about how to find the inverse of that given function. Okay, so up top is like the definition, the basic mechanics of what it's doing behind the scenes. Now we're going to talk about how to find an inverse function. Okay, so make sure you have this example written down, and we're going to go through the steps for converting this to an inverse function. All right, so step 1 is to rewrite as y equals. So instead of this f of x, I want to rewrite with y equals 3x plus 6. Okay, what questions do you guys have about that first step? Okay, if there are no questions, we'll move on to the second step. The second step is to swap or interchange x and y. Okay. So this looks like taking my x, putting it where the y was, and replacing that x with the y. I'm going to have x equals 3y plus 6. What questions do you guys have on that step? Okay, now step 3 is the most in-depth step. In step 3, we're going to solve for that y. So we switch the x and the y, which put this y inside of all these numbers and operations over here. So we're going to have to do a little bit of work to get that y by itself again. Okay, so step 3 is to solve for y. That's why there's such a big gap between the third step and the fourth step. So in step 3, I need to isolate y by itself. So you guys should be experts at solving for variables. So I'm going to have you guys help me out. Brandy, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. So what am I going to do first to get this y by itself? What's the first thing that's got to go?
The 3.
So we could remove the 3, but then we're going to end up with a bunch of fractions. We're going to have like 6 over 3, which is fine, but then we'll end up with x over 3 over here. So let's get rid of this guy first. How do I get rid of that plus 6?
Subtract it.
Yeah. So they're going to cancel out right here. On the left-hand side, I'm going to be left with x minus 6. On the right-hand side, all I have left is 3y. Thank you, Brandy. Oops, I'm pulling from the wrong school stick cut. Is that? I'm sorry?
You getting on your class?
Isai, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. So what am I going to need to do next to get
Divide.
y by itself? So you said divide.
Yeah.
And what am I dividing by on both
By
sides?
3.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to have, and I'm going to just switch the left-hand side and the right-hand side now that y is by itself. Y equals x minus 6 over 3. If that confused you, all I did was take x minus 6 over 3 equals y and just switch the sides. Okay. All right, so now we've isolated y. We've completed step 3. The last step is to replace y with f inverse of x. And remember, we don't call this f negative 1x. This is f inverse of x. Okay, so step 4, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this y that I wrote, and I'm going to write f inverse of x instead. And we're done. Okay, so that's all we've got to do to find the inverse of a function. What questions do you guys have about that process?
Okay, it's kind of going a little fast, but I'm still trying to.
Okay, Peyton, what was all that yelling going on from your camera?
I was yelling. I was trying to make sure my little sister was getting on her class. That's why I was yelling.
Okay, well, you got to focus on writing this down because we have a very.
I'm writing it down. I'm definitely getting it down, but you know, kind of like going at a fast pace, but it's getting wrote down.
Going as slow as I possibly can, so you can go back and you can rewatch the video. Okay, just try to keep up. All right, so we need to do this process. Are there questions about the actual process that we have here? Okay, if there are no questions about this process, we're going to do one of these examples at the bottom together. We'll come back and we'll finish as many as we can. I just want to get back, there's a back to this where we talk about 2 different properties of inverse functions, and I really want to get to those before the end of class today. So we'll do one of these examples real quick. If we don't get to all of them, I will post the solutions to all of them later so that you guys can see more examples. Which of the 4 problems at the bottom looks the most challenging to you guys?
Number 3.
Square root.
Okay, so I see number 3 with the square root. That's a great one. Let's try that one. Okay, so we're going to go through all 4 steps with number 3. Okay, and you guys are going to help me out with this. We're just going to go through a step at a time. If you're confused, it's okay. Just ask questions. Roxy. Roxy, are you there?
Yeah.
All right. So step 1 says rewrite as y equals. So what am I going to write for my very first step for number 3?
Y equals the square root of 2x minus 1.
Perfect. Thank you. Excellent. So step 1 is just to replace that f of x with y equals. All right. Now step 2. Jukai, are you there?
Yeah.
All right. So step 2 says swap or interchange x and y. So what am I going to write for step 2 on this problem?
There. Go back in there. Dang. Sorry. Can you ask that again?
Yeah, of course. So what am I going to write for step 2 here? I'm swapping x and y.
X equals 2.
Well, the square root of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, perfect. Good. Thank you very much, Jukai. All right, step 3 is to solve. So we need to isolate y. So Zulabet, will you help me out with this?
Yeah.
All right, so how do we get rid of a square root? What's the opposite of square rooting?